All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble. Of course, I believe that we are, though, because chat is working. Spaz out, it's Taco Tuesday. Jilliby baby. Gary Baxter 001. Clank it to me, baby. Hey, Spaz. Cam 2425 IA. Morning, Clankdom. And it goes on and on and on. Mrs. Tag, I should buy a bunch of Orange Man Big and put them in my neighborhood's tiny free library. Well, that is an 18 plus work, so if kids have access to that, officially I wouldn't encourage you to do so. There are other works of mine that are available, though, on my books blogs. Tarl Warwick Books blog on Blogspot and WordPress. Maybe something occult would be more age appropriate for the little uns. Anyway, let's make sure that we're live here. The daily struggle ensues. Yes, we're live. Okay. The other plants are still out on vacation, out in the yard. So I've got the amaryllis behind me. They're doing pretty well. They're having a fun time. We've got to talk about the bribery probe with Biden. Comer and others are overlooking that. It could be a big thing. Like this is the first time in Biden's administration that we've had something that is a something burger enough that it could actually lead to some sort of meaningful investigation. I will remain skeptical, but we will be talking about that because, I mean, it is a major thing, assuming that the claims are true and there's no reason to believe that they're not. The Border Patrol right now is mad at Biden because, of course, Title 42 is ending in a couple of days, actually. It's expiring on Thursday. And that means that a bunch of people are going to storm across the border. It could be many thousands or even tens of thousands of them. They're already basically arranging themselves, assembling south of the border right now, waiting for 48 more hours, and then finally they can come across and overrun the facilities there. This could be bad for Biden, assuming that that spectacle happens, although the legacy media, of course, won't cover any news about it. Also, Budweiser, self-owning again, yet again, for the fourth time now at this point. First, well, technically fifth, they own with the original ad with Dylan Mulvaney. Then they own with their national ad at the Super Bowl that sort of countermands the entire premise. Then the CEO comes out and self-owns. Then gay bars start attacking them from Chicago and elsewhere. That's a cell phone. Now a fifth cell phone in a row. By the way, how many times can a company fuck up on a major level before the company goes defunct? Now, if it were anything other than Budweiser or some other really, really major brand, they probably would be bankrupt by now. Yeah. Kermit the Fud, Trump has been issued a gag order, only in part. Now, that has to do with online coordination. That doesn't mean that he can't talk about his ongoing cases in a in-person format, and I'm assuming that he probably will. So we will be probably talking about that tomorrow, maybe in a standalone video, but it's not quite as dire as some people are claiming with regards to the Jean Carroll case. Also, in that case, it's bullshit anyway. Anyone with any reasonable common sense knows that it's bullshit. It's an age-old claim from several decades ago that's been revived for political purposes. Texas P12. Day 7 of Oregon Republicans walkout. I haven't heard anything about that. You can DM me on Twitter with news tips, of course. I always appreciate it when that happens. Anyway, the first news story of the day from the American Spectator. Bribery probe may sink Biden re-election bid. His own party will force him out of the 24 race if the whistleblower allegations are true, which they are. Now, the whistleblower is almost certainly telling the truth on this. Anyway, we'll go through a little bit of this verbatim. I'll give my thoughts. When House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, Republican from Kentucky, subpoenaed the FBI for documentation that may link President Biden to a bribery scheme perpetrated when he was VP, the White House response was oddly overwrought. It was a little bit lopsided and odd-ended. For going on 5 years now, Republicans in Congress have been lobbying unfounded, politically motivated attacks against POTUS without offering evidence for their claims. This was a very strange charge to make, concerning a mere subpoena for documents supporting the disclosures of a whistleblower. Comer's subpoena gives FBI Director Christopher Wray until May 10th to produce the following: all FD 1023 forms, including within any open, closed, or restricted access case files created or modified in June 2020 containing the term Biden. including all accompanying attachments and documents to those forms. This particular form is used by FBI agents to record statements made by informants that the specified date range suggests that Biden had been reported for taking bribes from a foreign national, and that the file was tidied up right around the time he nailed down the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination. Now, here's the long and short of it. It is still unlikely that this is going to lead to any closure on the Biden crime family scandals, which are so profuse. We know that Biden's a criminal. The Hunter Biden laptop puts that on full display for the population. We know he lied to the American people about who he was meeting with and when. We know that he lied about business dealings. It's not about Hunter's dick pics. It's not about Hunter snorting coke or smoking crack. Those are amusing, but they have nothing to do with public officials or public policy. The only thing that is at hand that anyone cares about in the meaningful sense is public policy and whether the law was broken. Those are different from Hunter soliciting prostitutes. Okay, he broke the law, but he's a private citizen. Nobody cares. What's at stake is there going to be any closure with regards to the obvious and objectively proven business dealings of Joe Biden through his son? And this is one of the instances where the FBI was apparently aware of that. The problem is the FBI could have scrubbed the documents. They could ignore Congress, which they likely will. They could claim that there's nothing there, even though there clearly is, and say, well, look, the documents that they're specifically requesting somehow aren't here. They're in another storage facility, and we don't know where they are. We've seen this before with regards to the hiding of documentation of crimes by the FBI, DOJ, etc. And so I have no reason to believe it is likely, although it is possible, that this will cause Joe Biden to be knocked off his pedestal and ousted from his stewardship. It's possible. It would be wonderful if that would happen. It'd be hilarious. It would be deserved, but it's unlikely to happen. But there is a chance of it. And that's why I'm talking about this as the main news story of the day. There is actually a chance that some closure will actually come through, that they will find a smoking gun. The problem is that if the FBI merely speculates that you may have been involved in a criminal proceeding, well, that's definitely red meat to the GOP base. Anyone who doesn't like Biden will enjoy that story. It's not going to convince anyone else, and it's not in and of itself evidence of any criminal wrongdoing. Joe Biden can then come out to the American people, or really Karine Jean-Pierre would be the one doing it probably, and say, well, yeah, the FBI looked into it, and they didn't do anything for several years, so clearly it was spacious. That's the cope that they're probably going to go with, assuming that there's anything there. I like how they call the request for documentation vague, even though it's extremely constrained and extremely specific. So there is definitely ass covering going on. And that indicates to me guilt in this case. I do believe that Joe Biden did actually take bribes from a foreign national. Hunter Biden's laptop alludes to similar things anyway, so there is sort of a legal precedent for this. But as far as if there's any evidence that you can prosecute based on, especially when the DOJ is run by unipartyists, that's an entirely different litmus test. People need to understand, don't get your hopes up. It's possible, but it's not likely. Big boy. Sticks, got my copy of Orange Man Bad. Had me laughing out loud the whole time. Really effing funny. Everyone, buy yourself a copy. Yes, that's right. If you look at the links in the description, or if you looked at the pinned comment up above in chat, if you're watching on YouTube, you can get a copy of Orange Man Bad. Keep in mind, if you buy a copy, if you leave a rating, or especially a review, it really helps with Amazon's algorithm. So far, over 500 copies have sold. That is about 5 times as many as I expected to sell in the first week. Now we're on day 8. It astronomically more successful than I expected. I am going to write volume 2 while I balance out 4 other fucking literary projects at the same time. By the way, the other day I did finish the first edit of Baring Gould's work, Curiosities of Olden Times, and then moved straight on to the next work, The Use of Bathing in Medicine. Old 1700s tract on mainly antiquity, the ancient Greeks, Romans, and Egyptians, and their use of bathing as a form of medicine, and some of the ointments and herbals that they included within that bathing. Fascinating work, terrible fucking format. It's going to take me a while, even though it's a fairly short work to work through it, but I will persevere. I will definitely be releasing several more authored works, and at least 10 edited works over the course of the rest of this year. It will probably be substantially beyond that. But yeah, you should get a copy of that. People seem to be enjoying it, and I'm very, very glad about that. I'm glad to have made you laugh. Majestic126, thank you for being you and making my day brighter. As a man with 4 kids, I know how expensive diapers can be. Please accept this towards the kiddo fund. Thank you very much. Yes, you can always use that. Michael Cricklow, the Maybelline boycott over Mulvaney is so weak. No, there was even one, so yeah, probably true. Cyrus Bluebird, hi, I'm sharing the news. SPLC is attacking Odyssey channels, and they tagged you in there as alt-right. I did see that. I saw their cockamamie list. Lol. Posted this days ago. Twitter DMs, almost like I'm ignored. No, I did see, if you're the one that DM'd that to me, I did actually see the list. But, I mean, it's not really newsworthy because they've been doing this all along. The SPLC doesn't like me. It doesn't like many other content creators because we compete with their legacy media partners. And, yeah, that's the long and short of it. No, they can say I'm transphobic or alt-right, or they can say whatever they want. They've become unimpressive over time. They're not as adept as they used to be at getting people banned. King of Biltong, good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Hashtag Clank Nation. More Biltong funding there. That's what I'm talking about. So yeah, to detail it in brief, the Comer probe into Biden's allegations with regards to bribery by a foreign national, no less, they're meaningful. They're definitely newsworthy. They should be looked into. But the House Republicans are weak. They're led by McCarthy, so that's number one. And number two, typically speaking, these sorts of things, even if they are meaningful, they get brushed aside. And even if the proceedings go along, you know, in an unhinged manner, and they're like, oh, shit, we do have a smoking gun. Joe Biden took money from somebody from, I don't know, China or whatever, and that affected his public policy making. Okay, prove it in a court of law. First, you've got to get a court involved, though. It's very difficult. Outas85. Clank, now that you're Eurocentric, what is your favorite French fry dipping sauce? I still like ketchup. Although I am always going to be Americentric. I am from the United States. I happen to be residing in the Netherlands. Yeah, Stick, Saxon, Hammer, alt-righter. Yes. Clearly, I'm ready to get a swastika tattoo and move to Texas. Yes. According to the SPLC, that makes perfect sense. They've been defaming me, though, for some time. I first got defamed by a mainline publication in 2016 or thereabouts by the Wall Street Journal. So the SPLC should take a seat. Bigger people than you have tried to defame me before. Even Rational Wiki's probably got more clout than you, and they're a bunch of Hillary Clinton fans. So Zachary Antle, a hashtag I've seen going the rounds lately is LGB without the T. And as a gay man, it makes me so happy. LMAO. Thoughts? Yeah, I don't have any problem with the T either. I just don't think that children should be mutilated. I don't give a shit about people's pronouns. I'm not going to be politically correct. If someone presents as male or female, I'm going to refer to them that way. And if they feign, you know, fury over my insensitivity towards them, I'm going to roll my eyes at them. So adults can do whatever the fuck they want. But as far as my choices, what I say, what I believe, that's my choice. So people can fuck themselves. That goes for far more than just the woke, too. The Duke of Funk in South California, which might be red if you would ignore LA and the Dem Machine. But you bet I'll move to Vegas if this goofy reparations happen. Also, several of your books arrived today. Excited to dig in. Enjoy. I hope you enjoy them. I don't know why you'd move to Vegas. Nevada is quickly becoming California 2.0. So you might want to go further. Arizona's still salvageable. Somewhat. Samantha Winter. Hey, Sticks, love your work. Got any white pills? Been feeling overwhelmed by the news lately. Yeah, as usual, self-improvement is key. Don't worry about what's going on in the world. It's going to be fucked up. It's been fucked up for thousands of years. Humans have dealt with all sorts of shit. 100,000 years ago on archaic Twitter, they're talking about how the saber-toothed tiger population has grown too large and keeps predating upon their pastoral animals and shit. Yeah, don't worry too much. Just try to put yourself above the worry by improving yourself. You've got skills, build one. You've got other things you're interested in, not skilled in, learn to be skilled in it. Work a little bit harder, spend a little bit less, do whatever that you can, because hard times are coming. To be clear, and this is not to blackpill people, I believe that hard times sociopolitically and economically are on our doorstep right now. It is imperative, and I tell clankers this for a reason, that they build skills. Maybe one of you will take advantage because of the place that you're in and the skills you have at the time. One of you might become the next minted billionaire as the result of simply having the right skills in the right place at the right time during a period when other people are falling by the wayside. And then you can show your largesse towards me, so it's definitely partially self-serving. Self-improvement works in both ways. Yes, get a little more fit, drop of ice, do whatever you have to do. You'll feel healthier, you'll feel better, you'll have more money. Isn't that a great thing? Those are good things. Learn to grow things. If you know how to grow things, learn how to grow something else. And also, you should be eating as much homegrown food as possible. I can't wait until I have a home kitchen garden. Toadstool Philosopher, please mention the channel Nuclear Grifter. Okay, we have a mention of Nuclear Grifter from Toadstool Philosopher. E100 Omega 123, there was a mass shooter in Texas over the weekend. He was a Hispanic, but the MSM is calling him a white supremacist. Must be a member of the Quay. Yeah, I will say this. It is possible for a person who is Hispanic to be a white supremacist if they are a white Hispanic. They do exist. That being said, it was funny because the liberals didn't admit to that existence until the Zimmerman trial with Trayvon Martin. That was the first time that the NIMBY liberals ever embraced that term. Before, it was like, no, Hispanic's totally different from white and totally irreconcilable. Hispanics also becoming more conservative over time anyway. As they gain more wealth, they are less inclined to want welfare and higher taxes. Who'd have thunk it? This is why the globalists want to take the middle class and cripple it. Hunter Wadley, Orange Man Bad by John Ward on YouTube. Oldie but a goodie. Give it a listen. I have no idea what happened to him. I enjoyed his channel. Interesting. Zachary Antle, part of the writer's strike lately is because of AI and IDGI. You'd think that writers would love AI. It definitely helps when it comes to writer's block. I never use AI in my writing, just to be clear. Although I've thought about it, have AI write something totally off the chain, some splatterpunk novel. I guess it'd be fun. Kaz and Simon. Going to buy Orange Man Big later. Yeah, I'm going to pass worrying now since losing mom. Just keep going. Life's too short. My condolences on your mom. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Keep going. Build your skills. Get tough, motherfucker. Make the world your bitch. Dennis the Menace, what do you think of the story of James Leininger, a boy who claimed to be the reincarnation of a random World War II fighter pilot shot down in battle? I do not believe in that variant of reincarnation. When people remember that they were reincarnated, I notice that they always were a great leader or fell in battle. It was never, hey, for the last 3 lives, I've been a peasant. I starved to death 3 times in a row. Please feed me. I'm fucking hungry. I notice that that's quite rare. That would be the actual experience of the average person prior to the 20th century. Next news story, Border Patrol Union criticizes feds after warning sent ahead of migrant enforcement operation in Texas. The operation is taking place 2 days before Title 42, which was initiated in March 2020, is set to expire Thursday. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, let's go, Brandon. Real cool. Tens of thousands of people are currently massing near our southern border to charge across because you've removed this program, even though you could unilaterally extend it. It is possible for Biden executively to do so. The Border Patrol Union criticized the Department of Homeland Security Monday night for announcing a targeted enforcement operation in Texas to remove or detain illegal immigrants, accusing the feds of tipping off migrants hours before the operation is supposed to take place. Yeah, good on you for telling them beforehand so that they could move elsewhere and therefore not be detained. That's just wonderful. This is what we get from the Joe Biden stewardship. Agents from Customs and Border Protection and Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers are set to carry out an initiative on Tuesday in El Paso, where approximately 2,200 migrants are currently camped out, living on the streets a few blocks from major ports of entry that connect the city of Juarez, Mexico. Yeah, no liberal got that memo and immediately went out with their iPhone and some bottled water and started handing out saying, shit, guys, you might want to move out of the city for the next 24 hours. That'll totally not happen. Totally unrealistic. Nothing like publicly announcing that dangerous people will be arrested while warning them ahead of time exactly where to run and hide to avoid arrest, the Border Patrol Union tweeted late Monday evening. I love it. I mean, again, these are government union workers. These are natural-born Democrats for the most part. These are people who like big government because government's what's paying them with taxpayer money, of course. And they're criticizing Joe over this. And how much do you want to bet that there's going to be one hell of a goddamn surge after Title 42 officially ends in a couple of days? Like, 24 hours later, you've got an extra 10, 20,000 people showing up in a single day. That's not beyond the realm of possibility based on what I'm seeing. I realize that there are some images from yesteryear of migrant caravans that are being circulated as though they're contemporary. That doesn't mean that there aren't caravans currently advancing on the southern border. Why wouldn't you? I'm imagining myself. Put yourself in the shoes of some penniless migrant. You're born into a socialism-crippled nation, like Honduras or something, a banana republic with a tin horn dictator or something like that. You have no future. You're not from the upper class or from the upper crust in the military or government sense in your country. The best that you can hope for is you have a shop front and you spend your days laboring hard, making ends meet, and your kids get an 8th grade education. That's your future. That is the best you can hope for. You better hope you don't get sick or something like that because basic medicine is unavailable there because of socialism. And then you find out, hey, an orange man is gone, and now the steward of the United States spent his entire campaign saying, hey, you can come here if you want to. We'll just grant you a refugee status, and you can do whatever the fuck you want. They claim that I shouldn't come, that I'll be deported, but I'm seeing all these stories about people who are not being deported, and if I can make it across and disappear into the woodwork, at the very least, I can make $5 an hour under the table somewhere. I can park my ass out in front of Home Depot, and the dude in the cowboy hat will come on and say, hey, any of you boys want work? Yeah, I want work. I work 10 hours. I don't make much money, but shit, I'm still making a hell of a fucking lot more than I would make back in Honduras. I can send I don't pay taxes on it. I'll send some of that money back. And my abuela, unlike Ocasio-Cortez's abuela, who's been abandoned in Puerto Rico, will have 2-3 times as much money as before. My 5 little brothers and sisters can get an education. My mom and my grandma and so forth, they can buy medicine. And in the meantime, I'm being given rudimentary lodging here. Yeah, I'm sleeping 10 people to a room. It's not cozy. I'm not eating as much as I should. But it's still better than being in the third world because I'd still be living under those conditions and I'm making 10 times as much fucking money. If I put myself in the shoes of these poor fuckers, of course I would try to make the crossing. And of course I'd be a young, able-bodied male. And they can join the military too. Hell, you're giving me 3 hots and a cot. Yeah, you're yelling at me constantly, but you're giving me MREs and shit. I hear that YouTubers are shelling out $50 for one of those fuckers. You're giving them to me for free, and you're paying me a salary upon which there's a relatively low tax, and I might be able to go to college? Jesus, you people are gullible. Of course I would come across for that kind of opportunity. If I was an 18-year-old in Honduras right now, I would make the goddamn trek. I would join the goddamn U.S. Army. I would work my goddamn ass off. I'm not putting down on these people. They work hard for a reason. They do want to stay. But there's a proper way and an improper way to do that. You've made it easier for a person to wander across illegally and melt into the background than you have to allow somebody to come in through the legal channels. Why would anyone even legally immigrate to the United States right now? I don't even understand. Why would you want to pay thousands of dollars and spend years in conditional residency having to learn a bunch of civic crap when you could just sit there and hope that the Democrats, they won't, eventually give you amnesty? I mean, you're making the same money. Your family back home is making 2-3 times as much as before. You're crippled. The Jim Cratchit there, he can finally get something better than crutches. He can get a prosthetic and is perfectly fine. Yeah, absolutely, I would come to the United States illegally. Wouldn't you? Put yourself in other people's shoes, and then you'll understand why our current policy makes no sense. Dennis the Menace, what do you think of the story of James? Oh, I already did that one. The Commander 248, what's with the conservatives fighting each other? Candace tried doxing conservatives like Treehouse News. Anthony Bryan Logan defended it. Now it's Crowder and Daily Mail and quartering Tim Pool. If you don't like Glenn Beck, what gives? I don't get into any of that e-drama. Unless it personally involves me, I leave it alone completely. That's one of the secrets to my success as a content creator. Fuck that shit. I'm going to watch whatever content I want. I don't care about their ins and outs and their personal kerfuffles. Adam Gardner, sometimes you respond to my telepathic whatnot. David H., why do you think the middle class is always attacked? Communists attack the bourgeoisie. The U.S. is destroying the middle class, etc. Because imagine the middle class is not on the up and up to the topmost level where they're part of your club, so they're not your friend. But they've also got more upward mobility than the lower echelons of society, and so they can't be controlled as easily. They demand more washing machines and nylon stockings, so to speak. They want more. And they're not part of your party, part of your club at the top 1% of 1%, but they're not poor. So they have the ability to collectively vote if they consolidate. The Commander 248. To elaborate, there's a difference with you disagreeing with Glenn and Candace Owens doxing and suing other conservatives. How is what Candace is doing at all helpful? Seems petty for her to sue Crowder. Again, I'm not even going to bother getting into it. I like Crowder. I like his content, especially the YouTube Christmas Carol years ago. That was great. And I like Candace Owens' content. I don't know anything about the backstory and don't care enough to look into it. So, the Patriot, Cairo, BlackRock, Vanguard, and the Murdoch family are responsible for dumping Tucker. Altogether own 60% of Fox shares. Didn't like his expose on the WEF or the fact that he was going to platform Trump throughout the election. They're supposed to silence Trump by not having him aboard. Not a banned account. Where's the national high-speed internet Joe promised? It will never happen. Crossover Maniac. What is the difference between your version of reincarnation and the post-mortem non-existence of atheism? Just curious. I believe in uncontrollable permanent reincarnation. I've explained this before in brief. If you're not aware of anything-ness, then time moves infinitely quickly to a point in which you have incarnated in a form that can understand things, view things around it, so forth, be self-aware. What I look at is reincarnation is non-karmic, because I don't believe right and wrong in the objective sense based on religiosity even exists. I believe in string theory, and so I believe that you are in multiple places at once. Well, if you die in one of those places, you switch over to a place in which you're not dead. I believe in the malleability of things interrelated to each other, so I don't believe that the atoms that comprise my body, for example, are demonstrably separate from your atoms or demonstrably separate from the atoms of anything around me. The difference is if you're incarnated into a form that's not self-aware, time has no meaning. 1 billion years can go by and you wouldn't even be aware of it. So you simply get shot out on the other end, perhaps in a spiritual place in another sort of realistic framework, or perhaps in the corporeal world. David Chan sounds pretty good. Theosophists, adaptation of Hinduism. Anti-Piracy League, just got off night shift. Sleep or clank? Conundrum. You should probably go to sleep if you just came off the night shift. Nobody will blame you, don't worry. Corto Maltese, I might have lymphoma, so quick, take my money before I spend it on chemo. Oy vey, I thought the leukemia was bad enough. Goodness, I hope that you're joking. If you do actually have lymphoma, again, my condolences. Yeah, it's no joke. I'll just hope that you're being facetious. BW, thought of something, reparations as an attack from Democrats on red states. If they say a free state like California owes $800 billion, how much are they going to say the former slave states owe? Yeah, California never even had legal slavery. What the fuck are they talking about reparations for? 487 Sean Tower. I was watching in the UK when Liverpool's soccer team began singing national anthem. All the immigrants protested. Why are we bringing people who openly hate their host countries, culture, and people? Yeah, I do believe that people who are specifically pernicious to their host culture should be ejected. In all cases, they should do that here as well. Like I'm in the Netherlands. They've got a king. It's illegal to insult the king. I don't necessarily agree with making it illegal to insult a monarch, but I'm not going to go out of my way to do so because I'm not in my home country. I'm not a citizen of the Netherlands. I come from the United States. I come from North America. I'm in a host country. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. If you want to be in a place, follow the laws, at least try to follow elements of the culture. Like I can speak some basic Dutch, try a little, make a fucking effort. Show that you actually give a damn. Otherwise, get the fuck out. Deus Flex. Speaking of reincarnation, any thoughts on General Patton? Patton was right, and he should have been allowed to do what he wanted to do. We could have creamed the commies. Instead, the Iron Curtain went up, and then hundreds of millions of people died, and the rest is history. They probably killed General Patton because he actually believed and walked the walk instead of just talking the talk. Next news story. Anheuser-Busch blames third-party ad agency for Dylan Mulvaney partnership, cuts ties amid marketing shakeup. Anheuser-Busch reportedly sent distributors a letter saying they fired the marketing agency responsible for the partnership. Bud Light's parent company, Anheuser-Busch, is reportedly blaming a third-party ad agencies for the brand partnership with Dylan Mulvaney that prompted nationwide boycotts and cost them roughly $5 billion in losses. That's a lot of beer. In an attempt to distance from the deepening backlash, Anheuser-Busch has reportedly told U.S. beer distributors, those are the people that give it to the restaurants and shit, that it cut ties with the agency responsible for the Mulvaney collaboration in an effort to make amends with vendors weary over the brand's tarnished reputation, according to a source cited by the New York Post. Oh my God. The brewing giant reportedly sent a letter to hesitant distributors saying it has fired the marketing firm responsible for the polarizing sponsorship, which began last month when Mulvaney, a transgender TikTok influencer, you're not influencing anyone by making TikTok videos, but you can keep pretending, revealed that he was sent a can of Bud Light with his face printed on it as part of an ad for the beer company's March Madness contest and as a way to celebrate a full year of girlhood. Yeah, so they're taking the own once again. Once again, they're fucking themselves in the ass. You shouldn't have addressed it in the first place. You did, over and over again. You're now facing backlash from the other side, and now you're doing it again. What would have been a relatively smooth ride for Budweiser, where they get attention by creating controversy, but in the long term, after a few months, they reabsorb their old market share more or less, and it wouldn't have mattered. What could have been good for Budweiser, and initially I figured this is what would happen, I was wrong, has turned into a goddamn unmitigated disaster because they decided to keep responding to the controversy. You're supposed to create controversy and then just go on and do your thing and ignore it. You're not supposed to repeatedly apologize, take knee, and then do a 180 because then the people you would have brought on board go back off board. Budweiser apparently still hasn't learned its lesson as of the last 48 hours. They keep fucking doing it. It's inexplicable. How can a company with that much volume, how many fucking goddamn cans of Bud Light are drank every day just in the United States? 10 million or something? I mean, it's an enormous quantity of material. You're talking about a small factory worth of beer every single goddamn day, 365 and more on most holidays. And yet you are led by people that keep making very elementary branding mistakes. Like mistakes even as a content creator, off hook, independent. I know better than to engage in such a thing. Yeah, why doesn't Budweiser's people? Maybe they should hire me as a brand manager. They'd probably sell more product. Hello. Thoughts on Russell Brand? Have him on your show? I don't think he'd come on the Stick, Sex, and Hammer show. We'd clash too much on many things. He's a little bit like Bill Maher. He's sort of like the younger, long-haired Bill Maher, in my opinion. Mahi. I suspect California will be targeting farmland assets disguised as reparations. They've been going after the farmland for decades. There is $500 billion in farmland assets. Damn Schweinehunds. Yeah, they're doing that in the Netherlands. The EU just okayed their plan to confiscate 3,000 farms in this country. That'll probably be in the news tomorrow for me. Hunter Wadley, any take on the Biden admin's attack on lead, ammunition, and fishing gear? Irrelevant. Lead is cheap and easily acquired. You could pour your own bullets and hand load if you really needed to. Go to Home Depot, see how much that shit costs and how easily it's melted down and casted. That's not really a problem. Corto Maltese, we'll see. I found a lump where lymph nodes are in the back of my leg behind the knee, but I have no other symptoms. Either I found it really early or it's not lymphoma. Not worried, I survived wars. Hopefully it's not lymphoma. If it is, if you found it early, that's definitely better than the alternative. It could be a swollen lymph node. Maybe you have some other sort of underlying problem. Probably allergies, so maybe it's an allergy reaction or something. I have swollen lymph nodes from allergies sometime, but I've never had that happen here in the Netherlands because there are no pine trees. Toxic Mix, catching live for ones. Thoughts on Lake as the potential VP selection? You could do worse. Decent selection. While she's among the most rhetorically skilled, I'm concerned Dems would just pound the sore loser election denier label all cycle. Yeah, the problem with Kari Lake is she doesn't bring the independents aboard. She consolidates your hold over the GOP core, the MAGA core. She is very good at debating, but the VP only has one debate. If she were running for the presidency against Biden or Kamala, Jesus Christ, she would completely cream them. She's more rhetorically skilled than almost anybody else in modern U.S. politics, and that is true. She'd be in the top 10 easily within anybody who's in modern politics in the United States. Activist, politician, judge, anything like that. She is immensely skilled and verbose. But that doesn't add a huge amount to the mix. She still would be a good contender. I like Rand Paul best, but Carrie Lake, I'm sure, is on the short list. I'm sure that Trump is considering her actively. Sparky. Most slaves in British New World were white until 1715. It's a myth began by 1800s historians. All whites were indentured servants to set them apart from blacks. Yes, there was revisionism. There was a great deal of white slavery in much of the world, actually, until, well, the last century, basically. There's still some, by the way, if you go to parts of North Africa or the Levant or East Europe. The Commander 248, are you a fan of Ross Scott and his video game preservation ideas? Would like to see you two have a debate about peak oil, too. That would be a good show. Never heard of him, actually. Aaron Bennett, with BRICS getting ready to launch a central digital bank currency backed by gold or something else to try to replace the dollar as the global reserve currency, do you think they will succeed? I'm not sure that they are intent upon doing so. If they do, it's a terrible idea to back it with gold or silver or something, because those are tradable commodities, and the United States has more gold than China by far. That would be a disaster. Now, having a central bank digital currency as a competitor makes sense, but it'll be just a digital fiat. Salt A. Good morning, Sticks. Send regards, wishes, and prayers as my grandmother, who is vacationing, is in a medically induced coma after suffering 2 strokes. I send my regards to your grandmother and other people. If you happen to pray, you may do so. That's no good. I lost my grandparents when I was really young. The only one that was still alive when I was, well, even a young adult was my not even technically biological grandfather, the one that adopted my mother and her brothers, actually, and had married her mom after she was widowed. I never really had much of the grandparent experience myself. I met my biological grandmother from my dad's side a few times, but she was in poor health. We didn't really get out much or anything other than to the buffet. She liked that. I wonder why. Apache, did you see the Texas shooter had cartel tattoos? Yes, although also possibly Nazi tattoos and meme tattoos, and we have no fucking clue what's going on with the Texas shooter. That's why I haven't done a video on it. I don't know. I'm not going to jump down anyone's throat. I have no clue what the motive was there. I'm still waiting on the Nashville shooters manifesto myself. Sparky, Miller Lite was marketed using tough men like Joe Frazier because light beer was seen as sissy in the early 70s, opposite of recent Bud Light. Yeah, I don't understand light beer myself. It's sort of like non-alcoholic beer. What's the point? Just don't drink beer then. If you don't want the alcohol, drink fruit juice, drink coffee. Coffee is fun. Yeah, you get hopped up, you get a couple of good cups of strong coffee up in you, you'll feel real great. Or black tea or something. Sigil Stone 17 on Rumble. Anheuser-Busch has cut ties with the company responsible for the Mulvaney fiasco. Anheuser-Busch. Yeah, they would have to cut ties from themselves. Next news story. California Reparations panel says millions owed for slavery. Now, I covered this morning. You can watch that video if you would like. This will be the too long didn't read version. The basic premise is that California wants to give a bunch of money to qualifying black state residents as a reparation for slavery. Now, the funny part is they're talking about hundreds of millions. That would not be enough to cover the amount of reparations that the panel is talking about. You're talking about hundreds of billions, I believe, actually, to give them the total that you're talking about, 6-7 figures per person. You're taking people that were never slaves, and none of them were, unless they were outside of the United States. They were never legally enslaved, and giving them money on the taxpayers' dole for absolutely no purpose whatsoever. I would note that in the United States, a plethora of other groups were just as historically depraved and discriminated against. Japanese citizens getting locked up in internment camps, which, by the way, they did get reparations, but that's because they were actually alive when the reparations bill came up. There are no legal U.S. slaves alive today. They are all dead. Nobody that was alive in 1860 or thereabouts is still alive today. they are at least 2 generations removed from slavery, unless you're talking about a very small number of people who somehow managed to make it to 100 or more. It's at least 2 generations, and that's talking about people that are elderly now in regards to their slave ancestors. For the most part, it's a couple more generations from that, as far as the average person who's Black in the United States. Nobody is talking about reparations for the Irish servants, the indentured servants in their coffin ships, for the discriminated against Chinese that built a disproportionate number of the railroads in the country back during the 19th century and through the Homestead Act into the 20th. Nobody's talking about Italian Americans, the discrimination they faced, or even Scandinavian Americans. There was discrimination against people who were from Sweden, Finland, and places like that when they settled in the Dakotas and Minnesota, etc., originally for some time before they got accepted by the culture. What about Hispanic Americans? There was segregation against them. Even now, there are fights over equality for them, legitimate ones too. So why are we talking about reparations for slavery that hasn't existed for 150 years? It makes no sense. And California was never a slave state. There never were legal slaves in the state of California. It was a state that slaves escaped to get away from slavery. Yeah, let's put more money. And by the way, all the Hispanic voters in California, I am sure if you asked them, would love to pay more taxes in order to give money to people who are not actually aggrieved whatsoever. They'd be just absolutely hilarious, gleeful over that concept. Absolutely. The Commander 248, Ross Scott made the Freeman's Mind, and I feel you would like his witty YouTube game Dungeon Review series. He looks kind of like you and also moved to Europe. Interesting. Hell Radio Lives. Thoughts on Jim Jordan for VP or other office? No, I want Rand Paul as number 1. Carrie Lake is on the list. You could do worse than Tulsi, actually, which is ironic. She has mostly redeemed herself in my book. She's gone on the free speech bench. She is walking the walk now. I feel less apprehension about her. You could do DeSantis, but I think that boat has sailed. And with HB 269, I wouldn't like the idea. It'd be sort of like Mike Pence 2.0. But I mean, he's probably a shortlister, even though he and Trump both claimed that he wouldn't be the running mate. Jessica Lancaster. Hi, Sticks. Good morning from Florida. Good morning to you as well. Down there with your tropical weather. Sparky, light beer has fewer calories, not less alcohol. False. It does have less alcohol in it. Alcohol is one of the sources of calories in beer. Have you ever checked a Bud Light? It's 4.2%. What's a regular Budweiser? 5%. There is a difference. Light beers typically have a lower alcohol content. That's how you remove some of the calories. The Defamation League, you said in your earlier vid that Marilyn Manson may come out as non-woke. I doubt he was ever woke. His albums Antichrist Superstar, Mechanical Animals, and Hollywood basically predicted our modern world. Yeah, but he might come out more publicly as anti-woke is what I meant in that particular video. I agree with you, though. Uranium Rabbit, Sticks, if women made less than men and there's a gender gap, then aren't they entitled to that extra 20 cents for the dollar as well? Then open this Pandora's box. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, if the wage gap were actually real, they would need reparations too. By the way, please send no more super chats. I still have 3 news stories here, and we're going up on 50 minutes actually already. Where's the time gone? Time flies when you're having fun. Opinionated junkie. Right, need to leave race mixing subject alone. Most people don't talk about that subject anymore anyway because it's no longer perceived of as a cultural issue. Brian Schlicker, I am afraid reparations would only increase race-based resentment and hatred in the U.S. Also, say something in Swamp German. I would agree with you generally, and ein spreek ein beetje, Netherlands or Dutch, rather. My ability to speak it is horrendous. My ability to read it is actually pretty good. I can read through kids' stories that are probably a couple of grades beyond actually what I'm training to for the Dutch language exam that you need in order to get citizenship. As far as speaking and understanding it, more tenuous. 47 Sean Tower, I thought I should mention, look it up. China has leased all the bank's gold in Canada. EU states that it physically sits in China. Not shitting, for real. Insanity. False. Now, there is plenty of gold in physical U.S. form and in Canada and elsewhere, though they do bond some gold. Did you know that the Japanese hold more U.S. debt than the Chinese do, by the way? Sigil Stone, if you don't want to drink alcohol, just drink fruit juice. They are drinking fruit juice. Well, grain is not a fruit. Well, kind of technically, sort of, but in the culinary sense. You're thinking of wine and certain liquors. Yeah, no, I mean, if you don't want the calories and alcohol and shit, you can drink tea or something. Coffee is basically happy water. It's water that makes you happy because, you ground up and roasted some beans and you put it in the water. And all of a sudden it makes you feel better about yourself. I love coffee. Sigil Stone, they're discussing reparations so the media and its owners can whip up their pet human pit bulls, cause more property damage, and the banks scoop up more urban property for cheap. That is an unintended consequence of that particular debate. Next news story. Biden accuser Tara Reid posts cryptic message about death before potentially testifying to Congress. Yes, this is right after Gal Luft disappeared, by the way. Tara Reid, who has accused Biden of sexually assaulting her in the 90s, tweeted a cryptic message about her death before she potentially testifies to Congress, following an invitation from Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz. By the way, this will go nowhere. This is, again, much with Jean Carroll. It's an age-old hit. It's probably true. I do believe her. In the case of Biden, with his interactions with women, yeah, I believe Tara Reid. That doesn't mean that it's legally actionable. There's no forensic evidence, et cetera, et cetera. I want to make something clear. If something happens to me, all roads lead to Joe Biden, Reid wrote Sunday afternoon. Joe Biden and DNC political machine threats, bullying, intimidation over the last 3 years will not work. I'm not suicidal, she added. Part of that, I think, is a hit against Clinton more than anything else. That's an old joke. When you criticize Hillary Clinton, you're like, by the way, everyone, I'm not suicidal. So if I suddenly shoot myself Vince Foster style several times in the back of the head, it probably wasn't actually me. So I think she's being partially facetious. I don't think that she actually expects to be assassinated for coming out and potentially testifying against Joe Biden. The House committee involved, unfortunately, has no capability of bringing forth charges. The Uniparty would block it if they tried. And so Biden will skate on the fact that he probably did sexually assault, not just Tara Reid, but multiple other women over time. We've seen examples of him sexually assaulting young girls on video, including one that they speculate is still up in the air as to whether the individual who was speaking, I think, on Instagram at the time, it was actually the little girl in the video, even though we know that to be the case. The legacy media's fact-checking on that one is awfully goddamn convenient now, isn't it? We know that Joe Biden is a pervert for both young and adult women. We're aware of this fact, and it's observable. We've got pictures, we've got video, etc. That doesn't mean it's legally actionable. Sparky, Oliver Cromwell sent 50,000 Irish slaves, not indentured servants, to Barbados to farm tobacco. Most died within 3 years from tropical disease. Interesting. History, they don't teach you in the history books, not without good reason if you're a Marxist. Dark Gary 92, not going to lie, there's a reason why I'm starting to view the black community in a negative way. You shouldn't do that. Don't think of people as communal. Think of them as individuals. Being a Hispanic and seeing California wanting me to pay them for no reason really rubs me and my family the wrong way. A majority of black people don't even support the concept. This is mainly white liberals that are pushing it. That's the liberals, by the way, are hoping that that's going to be your reaction, that there will be some sort of inter-race sort of animus. A bunch of college liberals, most of which are white and live in gated communities. They're the ones that push NIMBYism on climate change, too. Matthew Richardson, Tara Reid's mom called into C-SPAN, described the attack. It was only discovered long after she died. Google tried to deep six the video. I did see that. Doc Holliday. And his own daughter in the shower. Yes, according to Ashley Biden's own diary, Joe Biden was showering naked with her at an advanced age, roughly the age of 9 or 10, I believe. That's not appropriate. A reasonable person would not conceive of that as appropriate. She never claims that she was raped or assaulted, but that was something that they did, and that's weird, and I would never do that with my daughter, so I'm just using my own anecdotal personal litmus test on this, but it sounds creepy. Mega Sea Monkey, good morning, Sticks. It's real Clank Hours. Get some coffee and troll Anomalies stream chat. No, I only troll relevant people, and he has fallen behind on that mark at this point. Sigil Stone, when I say fruit, I mean nothing to do with food. Well, I mean, a beer is kind of a food. It's just a liquid one. By the way, would technically, if you heat it up, would it be a soup or a broth? Why not? It's got grain in it, Next news story, Scoop. Tucker Carlson ready to torch Fox News. Yeah, the idea is that he's going to come for Fox and he's going to backstab them, basically. I would like to point something out. I'm going to gloss over this really quickly. It's an article I don't happen to agree with. Tucker Carlson is still under a non-compete agreement, a contract with Fox until the beginning of 2025, right after the presidential election, and that's totally coincidental. It was suggested, and I talked about the other day, that he could run for the presidency, effectively forcing the nullification of his contract. That's possible, unless he makes such a move, and that would be a goddamn astronomically unlikely move, although it's Tucker Carlson, so, there's a 1 in a million chance it happens. Here's the thing. He can't do this. What they're suggesting that he will do, which is start his own network, do exclusivity with Rumble. He'll get together. He'll do a podcast with a bunch of creators or something. He can't physically do that unless the contract that he's already under is nullified. And so right now, as of this particular time, that's not physically possible. So when you see people talking about Tucker Carlson and destroying the legacy media, I would love that. I would love it if he would turn around and punch out at Fox, because they fucking deserve it for being the shills that I already suspected they were and told people that they were, and some of them believed me and some didn't. While I would love that to be the case, now's not the time, because he can't. Legally speaking, he physically can't at this time. We'll see if that changes. Gold 818. Also, German Americans were highly discriminated against on the East Coast before and after World War I, which is why a lot of them started to change their last names or move to the Midwest. Yeah, and then look into Operation Paperclip, by the way, too. And then the final news story, we have, of course, updated polling with regards to the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. Donald Trump has a lead approaching 30 points right now. And that's in a field that is clogged with people that in some cases have said they're not even going to run. Like, for some reason, Pence remains on all of these polls at around 5, 6, 7%. He's at 5.4 in the aggregate. It's better than Nikki Haley, which is funny because he hasn't even announced that he's running and has made absolutely no goddamn overtures towards doing so. We've got Tim Scott on the list at 2.3. That's funny. He only formed an exploratory committee. By the way, the ABC poll leaves Ramaswamy, who has announced, off, but includes Tim Scott at 4, even though he hasn't announced. Again, the latest ABC slew of polls that show Biden's approval way down, Trump's and DeSantis's matchups against him way up, and Trump way ahead in the primary field, you can ignore the latest ABC polls. Based on the methodology, the deviation from other polls, I wouldn't put any stock into it. The liberals are fundamentally correct when they're dismissing it. Biden at 36% approval? Well, that's not true. This poll only does landlines. Well, you're correct, actually. The liberals are right for once. Let's give them a round of golf clapping applause. You are correct. Not because of the methodology, but just because it's a single poll. But you won't understand. If there were a poll that came out and said that Biden's 5 points ahead of Trump, then you would be parroting it from the rooftops about how Trump's done. People do this, wishful thinking within politics. Don't get involved in that. Look at statistics the right way, the way they really are. Don't parse them apart, cherry pick, and look at only what you want to see, and you'll be more accurate. I do find the poll funny, though. When I stack it up against the others, at least in the Trump v. DeSantis matchup, yeah, it checks out. Trump's in the mid-50s right now, or crawling up towards them, 52.2 in the aggregate. Dude, if you're above 50%, you can't be beaten. There's no possibility of it. And this polling, by the way, trickles down to the states. He's ahead in virtually every state other than Florida and California. And for neither of them do we even have recent polling. So he could be ahead in literally every state right now. I suspect that Donald Trump will be the nominee, pending death or incapacity. And that would hold true, in my opinion, even if he's not just indicted, but dragged into a jail cell. Even if they were to go crazy enough to put him in prison, which legally speaking, it's not clear they can even physically do, I think he'd be the nominee. Then the justice system and the legacy media would have to explain to the people why the mainline presidential candidate for a major party is currently in a cell or under house arrest. It would be interesting to see their explanation. I'm sure they'd find some sort of cope for it, though. The Commander 248, chances Murdoch being ousted and Tucker brought back? Very low. Probably not going to happen. Corto Maltese, German is the largest ethnic group in South Dakota. I'm half German, half Mexican myself. South Dakota, über alles. Yeah. So I think I'll go offline now. That was the last news story of the day. I would go a little bit longer, but there are a bunch of things going on tomorrow. I'm going swimming in the morning with the baby, so I would go into the pool. It's going to be a fun time. I'll get the live stream in tomorrow as usual. The morning videos may be a bit early or a bit late, just to let people know that's a possibility. I'm not 100% sure because I don't think schedule-wise it should be interfered with. But I always am cautious because I anticipate my schedule will be fucked with in some way on any given day by something that randomly arises. Something will happen and I won't be able to make that video till 2 hours later. I just assume that. That's why I'm an insomniac. I constantly think about these things. So yeah, I hope you had fun with today's live stream. To the near 5,000 people watching live, of course, I will be back tomorrow with more crazy news and other asides. I'd like to branch out into a little more cultural debate as well. That's about all.